Joining me today for another edition of Around the AJHL is Sherwood Park Crusaders play-by-play man, Brennan Escott. Brennan, thank you for taking this time. First of all, I just want to get your opinion. Where were you when the season shut down? I mean, obviously the Sherwood Park Crusaders built for this huge playoff push, number one team in Canada. It was obviously a disappointment for the season to end. Just give me your thoughts on it.
They didn't even get to play a playoff game because they had the first round bye as the number one seed in the North, So it's disappointing on that level, of course, but this team had been built over definitely 2 seasons, not just one, with the idea that the 2020 Junior A National Championship was kind of the goal, and they were well on their way to that. So, just in terms of the amount of guys that they had brought in, the guys that they had graduating through the system, as well as some of the guys that were the top end talents, of course, of the draft eligible Carter Savoy, the Michael Benning. I mean, this was sort of the last kick at the can for Junior A hockey for a lot of these guys. And there was a genuine shot. I don't know if you saw, nor should anybody put too much stock into this, but they did win the vote. The Crusaders won the Twitter vote that the league did, or I believe it was like junior hockey night in Canada kind of a thing. But yeah, this was definitely the year for it to happen. There's been a ton of turnover on the roster since. So they'll be hard pressed to get back to where they were. It's definitely disappointing.
Now, the Crew are going to be losing a number of players, not just 20-year-olds who are graduating on, but different players like Carter Savoy, like Matt Benning, who could be going to university next year. How long does the Crusaders window stay open?
Well, you know what? The Brooks Bandits are never down for too long, and that certainly would have been something to contend with out of the South, as would the Okotoks Oilers and those perennial powerhouses. I think Sherwood Park's trying to establish themselves as a perennial powerhouse, right? They're trying to separate themselves from a middle of the pack team. And there's going to be some residual, some leftover players, some pieces from what they had built up. Your Tanner Fincarix, Jordan Fry is the backup goaltender last year. Likely the incumbent this season, was phenomenal in stretches and certainly exceeded a lot of expectations. So the groundwork is there for them to move forward as maybe more of a winning program. That said, the top end talent that I mentioned, the NHL drafted Carter Gylander, he's off to college next year, as are, in all likelihood, Michael Benning and Carter Savoy, 2 guys that dominated the league through their entire 16 and 17-year-old seasons. So their window of really was this year. This was the time with their elite talent to get it all done. The approach this offseason kind of shifted a little bit, and they were looking externally, even south of the border prior to the COVID pandemic, for ways to maybe bolster the roster and keep this window open. But last year was definitely, the window was wide open. Now we're looking at maybe another season or 2, and we'll see what they're able to recruit based on the fact that, again, they're trying to become more of a perennially successful franchise.
Now, Brendan, with this next year being a developmental season, do you think this could be big for the Crusaders in sort of developing that next wave of all-stars?
It's a good point, and it's a very interesting approach I think the AJ has taken in that sense. And I'm glad that they did, because it gives the chance for some of those up-and-coming players, some of your 16-year-olds or certainly your 17-year-olds who, may have been last cuts last year, for example, who have the ability to play in the league. Well, now you get a longer look and a more of a time for them to sort of assimilate into what the pace of the AJHL is like. And, typically, I know you're a player yourself, Abs, so you won't be surprised to hear it's usually the speed when you're stepping up in competition that seems to be the biggest difference from level to level to level. So if you got a couple of month period here to play in games that allow you to understand that speed, and this is your first couple months in the league, I think that'll be really beneficial for some of the guys that may have otherwise had a longer introduction period to Junior A hockey. So very curious how this is going to play out. And I know the Crusaders have a couple guys in their system they'll be taking a long look at during that developmental season.
And now, final question for you, Brennan. Carter Savoy, I mean, it seems like everybody knows who he is. 53 goals this past season. The year before that, he was the AJHL's Rookie of the Year. What can you tell us that we don't already know about him going into this upcoming NHL draft?
Well, in all likelihood, you're going to see him picked somewhere probably near the end of the second, maybe early first round. Michael Benning on the back end shouldn't be too far after that. That's just based on, NHL Central scouting and stuff like that. As far as the player himself, I mean, good gracious, I've never seen anybody score as naturally as Carter Savoy has. And when I first started with the team, that was his first year as well. And there was a lot of hype for those two kids coming out of their club programs in St. Albert's. And, oftentimes you wonder whether they're going to be, because he's only 5'9", right? It's not like he's a big, physically commanding guy on the ice. Doesn't matter though for Savoy. He has a nose for the net. He has a shot that I don't think was rivaled by anybody in the AJHL. It's his ability to quick release. It's special. So I think for being a diminutive player, he's going to have that going for him, and he's not afraid to get into those ugly areas of the game too. Battle for the pucks in the corner. So he's somebody that I think can really contribute on the power play. The number one question for me always has been, is Carter going to be able to skate at the next level? But that's something you can definitely develop. You can't develop a shot like Carter Savoy has and had on display when he scored 50-plus goals this most recent season.
Well, Brennan, thank you for taking this time. This was Brennan Escott, play-by-play announcer for the Sherwood Park Crusaders.